Well, it's been a while since our last devotional. I hope you guys have been keeping up with your devotions on your own. We're actually going to be looking at Acts chapter 20, verse 7 today, and just dive right into that. It's talking about Paul, one of the disciples, and this is what it says. On the first day of the week, we came together to break bread. Paul spoke to the people, and because he intended to leave the next day, he kept on talking until midnight. There were many lamps in the upstairs rooms where we were. Seated in a window was a young man named Eutychus who was sinking into a deep sleep as Paul talked on and on. I don't know how many of you guys, but we've all had those people that are just like, they will not quit talking, and it's late at night and you're just doing the little, your head's bobbing and you're doing all that kind of stuff while this guy is speaking. And so this is Eutychus, and he is seated on a window. And back then they probably didn't have glass in the windows and stuff like that. And he's on the third story, and he starts to sink into a deep sleep. It says this: when he was sound asleep, he fell to the ground from the third story and was picked up dead. Paul went down, threw himself on the young man, and put his arms around him. "Don't be alarmed," he said. "He's alive." Then he went upstairs again and broke bread and ate. After talking until daylight, he left. And so this kid, Eutychus, falls out of this window. He's pronounced dead on the scene. They draw the chalk line around him. He's dead. Paul runs downstairs, gives him a hug, and says, "Guys, what are you worried about? He's alive." The guy gets up and walks home. Then Paul goes back up, starts eating, and keeps talking. That doesn't happen in my normal day. In fact, I've never seen that happen. I would love to see that happen, not the person falling out of the window part, but seeing somebody raised from the dead. I mean, how amazing that must have been. And how much faith he must have to just walk downstairs, somebody comes back to life, and then he goes back to eating, and he just goes on with his day. And it's an interesting thought that this is part of, what it shows to me is that this is part of Paul's normal routine. This is seeing people saved, seeing people healed, seeing people raised from the dead, seeing people's lives turned around was a part of Paul's normal, everyday life. It wasn't out of the ordinary for him. And I think so many of us, a lot of us, me included, that would be out of the ordinary. And for almost everyone, that's out of the ordinary. But for Paul, he was in such relationship with God that wasn't out of the ordinary. That was ordinary. That's where I want to be with my relationship with God. I want to get to a point where it's ordinary to see that kind of stuff happen. Where God doesn't, and I'm not like, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh," but I'm like, yeah, I knew God was going to do that. I knew God was going to do that. Not that I don't get excited about it, a life being changed, a life being turned around, somebody coming to Christ. But that I have such a faith in God that I know He's going to come through. That I'm not doubting that He's going to come through. And that's my prayer for you. That as you go through school, as you go through college, as you go through life, that you're not doubting if God's going to turn your life, your friend's life around. You're not doubting if someone's going to get healed. You're not doubting yourself. But you know God is going to come through in a big, big way.
Without you.